Great progress so far. In this lesson, we will learn about conversion functions. Conversion functions are used to change the data type of any column from one type to another. Many times, by default, you might find that the data type of a column is not what you want it to. So in those cases, cast or convert functions, they come very handy. Now let's understand this with the help of an example. So let's say we have employees detail table, and here are the columns and rows within the data table. Here are some of the columns and rows. So we have employee ID, their first name, last name, and their date of hire. Now let's say your analytics team want you to add a comment in the following format for each employee. First name, their last name, then was hired in, the year of the hired. Can you figure out the output? It's quite straightforward. Let's see what we expect. So we want to create this comment column, and the first name, for example, for the first employee is Barry Manu, was hired in. If we want to extract the year, which is 2006. So like this, Barry Manu was hired in 2006. Similarly, we want to do this for each of rows. Now let's see the code in action on the Metabase, how we will achieve this. So our table is employee detail. Employees underscore detail. So we'll do select star from a table, which is employees detail. Now semicolon. Let's quickly look at what we have in the data. These are certain columns that we have. We are concerned about employee ID, first name, last name, their hire date. We want to extract that text out, right? So we want to create a comment. So let's do select star. And now we want to combine some columns. And if you recall, there is a concat function that we get. The concat function can help us to concatenate multiple strings. So the first column that we have is a string column, which is first name, first underscore name. Then between first name and last name, we have a space. I can give space. Then after this, we'll pick the last name. So I'll pick the column last name. And again, there is a space in between. And let's say we write it here was hired in, right? And then at last, what we need is year. Now, year is by default a numeric. If I extract year, it is numeric by default. So I need to convert this into text. So this is where these cast or convert function, they come in handy. Now let's say first we try to convert cast. So the cast function, I can just provide this column and I can write as the data type. So I want this to convert into character. So I'll write as char. And we can close this. We can rename it as print. So we'll read this from our table, which is employees detail. So what I've done is I've concatenated first name, last name, then we have written was hired in their space, and then I have extracted year from my date time column, date column to be exact. This is a date column, and we have extracted year, and I have casted this as character. Now we can run this, and you can see this is the expected output that we wanted. So this was using cast. Now there is another function to do the same, which is convert. So we'll use convert function. I'll copy this code, paste it here. And again, concatenate, we have to use concat while you use it as it is. And now we will use a convert function. So convert function has a slightly different syntax. Now instead of using as, it takes two arguments. One is the column name, other is the data type. So it is separated by comma. So we can provide char here. Then again I can. And we see the same output, right? So we have two functions. One is cast. The syntax is slightly different. It use as then the data type. Convert function takes two arguments. The second argument is the data type in which we want to convert. All right, we have another conversion function which is string to date. As the name suggests, it is used to convert string to date format. Now the good part is it has a flexibility because we can provide the format of a date that we want to see. Right? Whatever date format we want to see after conversion, we can give a function. So this time we will see an example with a new table. Consider this table of the sales data from 2022 for a certain company. Now I have copied two rows from the data for your reference. So we have the salesperson name, their sales, and on what day, on what date they did that sale, and on what date this shipment was shipped. So the sale was done on 1st January by Amit. The sale amount was $1 and it was shipped on 10th of January 2020. Similarly, Priya did the sale on 2nd Feb, total of $4,000, and the shipment was shipped for 10th of Feb 2020. Now let's see your analytical team. They want to extract the date from the shipment date comment, right? We have shipment date and there is a date out there, but it is currently a string column to convert this into proper date. And so it means that this is how our output should look like. For the first row, it should extract the date, which was 10th January. For the second row, it should extract February 10th. All right, so we'll look at our data, which is sales underscore 2022. So let's do select star of the data, sales 2020. We can see the data. We have the date, salesperson, their sales, and date of, it's a text. And what we want to do is we want to extract the shipment date. So let's select each of the column. Let's say we do select. Let's say we just select shipment date, shipment underscore date, and now we want to convert this as a date column. Right? So we will use our function, which is string to date. Within the function, we need to provide two arguments. The first one is the string column which has the date, and the second argument is the format of the date. So for example, we will do substring here to extract the date out of this column. We can use substring. We know that it has a same syntax, that shipped on, colon and then space, then we have our date. So what we can do is in the substring, which is when using sub str, what we can do, we can provide the first argument column, which is shipment date, and the second argument is start index of the substring. Now shipped on and column and space, these totally they cover 12 characters. So I can start with the 13th character. I want to pick all the characters after this till the end. I'll not provide any length that I want to. I'll keep it as it is. By default, it will pick all the characters starting from 13. And this is substring that we have. And now the interesting part, we have to provide the format. We have different kinds of format. For example, let's say one is I want to pick first the month, right? Now, capital M here means that the month will be represented as the string, like January. Small m would mean that it will pick the month, right? Similarly, so I want to pick January complete, right? And then I want to, again, ampersand, and I want to pick the date next, which is defined using a small d. And then there has to be a comma. And then again, there has to be a percentage capital Y. Capital Y here means that we'll pick the complete year, which is 2022. If I use small y, it will show short form of the year, which is only 22. We'll play with this a bit. Let me show you first by creating. So this is converted as date, and then from a table which is sales and 2020. This, right, we can see that it has extracted the date form, or it becomes a date column. Or you would have seen by default in Metabase the date shows 12 AM. We can ignore. Now let's look at what are the different date formats that we have in C. So you will see these are the different date formats that we have. So there is small a that will tell what's the weekday. Small b means short form of the month. Small c would mean that numeric month name, like this. We use capital M in our example. Why? Because the text had like this. It had the complete month name. So we had to use capital M so that it could understand that this is January. Right? And the second thing that we had was the date, which is small d. And this, you can see this is the small d, is 01 to 31. Capital D, if we wanted, it would become first, second, third. Right? But in our first string date, we don't have a date number like this, first, second, third. Format that we have is this format, 10. So we picked small d. And then there is a comma for this, capital Y. Capital Y, can see here as 4-digit values. All Y, like I said, is a 2-digit value, right? So this was about string to date. All right. So we learned about 3 functions. We looked at cast, convert, which are used to change the data type of a column. Then we looked at string to date, which helps us in converting a string value based on specified format into a date time format, right? So that you can apply any date time function on the top of it. So this is the general syntax that we use. In cast, we provided the column name and then the data type to which we want to cast it. And for convert, we had 2 arguments. The first one is the column name or the value that we want to convert. And the second argument is the data type. And then we looked at string to date, which again had 2 arguments. The first one was obviously string value because it converts string to date. And the second value is the format of the date that we want to convert. Great. So in the next session, we will now learn about window function in SQL. So that's all from this session. Let's meet in the next one.